Hello, my name is Jenifer Hoffman, and this is a video presentation for a course I'm taking through Kent State's Library Science program, their Local History and Genealogy. We were asked in this course to choose a military regiment to study and to research. The regiment I chose was the 38th Alabama Infantry Volunteers. They were mustered in Mobile, Alabama in 1862, and they fought in the Civil War. What you're seeing on this page is two flags that represent their unit. One on the left with their stars and a couple of the different campaigns they were in. And in the middle there is a photograph of the reunion that was held in 1904 for the survivors of the Civil War. One of the interesting things about this unit, which was probably not uncommon during this war, is that when they were first mustered, there were 1,500 men. And as the war went on and when they finally surrendered, there was only 80 left. So that gives you a little bit of an idea of how many people in this regiment survived. These are some maps, some really beautiful maps of the campaigns. That was one thing that surprised me, is the drawings that I was able to find of the different campaigns. The battlefield of Chickamauga, and this shows the Battle of Mobile Bay. This is where I live, right here in Mobile. So that's one reason I chose this regiment, because they were close to home, and one of the men in particular was from Mobile. The individual that was from Mobile was Captain George Welch, and this is his page. He was born in 1829 and he died in 1900. He was actually a captain and a leader of the Company B of the Alabama Infantry. And here's some information about him. I was able to find him in the city directory several times, and it mentioned that after he came back to Mobile after the war, he worked as a steamboat captain, and that he loved to read and he loved books, and he also started a circulating library in Mobile. So that was an interesting thing for me to find out about him. The second soldier that I researched from this regiment was Israel Garner. He was in Company E. He was born in Alabama, but after the war, he spent most of the rest of his life in Florida. As you can see, here's a photograph of him. Here's a gravestone. He died in 1908, and I found this deed where he had purchased some land in Florida. So that was interesting to see. The third soldier that I looked at was James Carlos Anderson, and he was in Company D. He was a private. He spent most of his life in Clark County, Alabama. He was married to Adeline Green, and they had 7 children. And when he passed away, and I think she predeceased him, they gave 1.5 acres of land to their community, and they wanted them to build a church on it, and so they called the church Friendship. He was enlisted in Clark County, Alabama. He was in the hospital for a wound. 2 of the soldiers actually surrendered in Citronelle and wound up being released in Meridian, Mississippi. So that was what happened to most of the soldiers in this regiment. And here is Thomas Hamilton Atkinson. He was a private in Company E. It's a picture of himself and his wife and daughters, and Mr. Atkinson and his wife right there. And here is a application for a headstone from a pensioner, and a death certificate for Mr. Atkinson. I had the most trouble with this gentleman with the spelling of his name. He was spelled 4 different ways in the census. So I really had to do some digging and connect the dots to be able to determine which one was the correct one. It was spelled with 1 S, it was spelled Atkinson with an N, so I think that's probably the norm when you're doing genealogical research. He spent most of his life in Texas after the war, and he married Nancy Ardella, and they had 7 children. So that is where he lived until he died. So I hope you will explore this site and learn more about the 38th Alabama Infantry Volunteers and the lives of these soldiers. Thank you.